So moving on to our third session, New Dimensions of Mobility. In the Great Shift, inclusivity is key to innovation. Now, traditionally in the automotive industry, it hasn't always offered women a seat at the table. But thankfully, that is changing now too. So what is good design, and what are the key factors for successful design? How is it defined in the 21st century, and what role does it play for the future of mobility? It's not only about silhouettes and materials. User experience and interface are relevant success factors for the design of the future of mobility. Well, here to lead the discussion on the importance of diversity is Britta Reineke from Electric, a mobility platform that puts women in the driver's seat. Britta, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, welcome everyone, here and behind the screens, to the Electric session, Elle is driving new perspective. I'm more than happy to be here on stage and to have the opportunity to talk about this highly important topic, women in the mobility industry. First of all, let me welcome these inspiring, powerful women being here with me on stage. Live with me here in Berlin are Telma Negreiros. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. Super happy to be here.
Thanks. And then we also have here on stage, live with me, Shannon Thomas. Nice to have you here.
Likewise.
And then we have virtually connected from London, Imogen Pierce. And virtually connected from the Motor City Detroit, Katelyn Davis. So it's super nice to have you all here. You're powerful women. And so that everyone knows who you are and what you are doing, I would like to kindly make a brief introduction of each of you being here with me on stage. So Telma is the Vice President of PR and Communication Europe at Lynk & Co. And if you don't know Lynk & Co., Lynk & Co is the brand that challenges the car industry conventions with its new approach to ownership and mobility. Besides, they're placing a high importance on gender, equality, and diversity. Telma brought along a great statement. Equality within the workplace should not just be a goal or a target. It should be part of the business strategy and is absolutely critical to growth and productivity of any company. We at Lynk & Co are committed to reaching total gender parity across our entire workforce by the end of 2023. So let's go on with Shannon. Shannon is head of experience design at VanMoof. And Shannon is redefining the future of urban mobility of one of Europe's fastest growing companies. VanMoof is known for their stylish, smart electric bikes. Shannon is responsible for building and managing a team of experienced designers, researchers, and UX writers. She's one of the women in a leadership position who places a great importance on absolute equality and promotion of women in the industry. Tomorrow you can also hear her in the panel session, Design is Shaping the Future of Mobility. And let me introduce you Imogen Pierce, virtually connected. Imogen is head of city engagement integration at Arrival. Arrival is aiming to disrupt the van and bus market, offering zero-emission solutions for the cities. In her position, it's about understanding how Arrival can work in partnership with cities for bespoke mobility solutions. Imogen started her career at Jaguar Land Rover as an aerodynamics engineer. And last but not least, we have Katelyn Davis from Detroit, virtually connected. Katelyn is co-author of the new book, Women-Driven Mobility, that chronicles the rising impact of the female perspective in automotive and mobility. She is director of mobility at Antenna, an integrated communication and marketing firm focused on automated electric and connected vehicles, mass transportation systems, and micro-mobility solutions. So again, women, I'm super happy to have you all here, and I'm welcoming you again. As we all know, the mobility industry is still dominated by men. And my intention with Electric is to create a greater visibility for women and to offer a destination where they feel empowered, addressed, and inspired. And therefore, I'm super grateful to be here to put a spotlight on this topic and to push it forward. So what do I exactly mean with Elle is driving new perspective? To sum it up, as I said before, the mobility industry is still dominated by men. and hence mobility is not gender neutral. Diverse teams are more powerful to drive mobility forward. We women have a new perspective and a different understanding in improving mobility for everyone. So now I would like to start with our little panel discussion. This was just a little intro to introduce everyone. Telma, what could be the reason that the mobility industry is still dominated by men?
I mean, I need to go one step back. The industry is kind of a dinosaur. For the last 100 years, we've actually been doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, which actually is madness. At Lynk & Co., you know, the gender topic is part of our business strategy. It's part of our DNA. It's part of who we are if we want to be as a brand. And this doesn't come just, you know, naturally. You really must work for it and have that as a key pillar to make sure that this happens within your company. And when we researched the 48 biggest OEMs in the world, we found that the percentages, male versus female, was shockingly brutal and something to be ashamed of, actually. At Lynk & Co. at this moment, we have a division for the total company, 45% females and 55% males. And why? I think there's a lot of reasons why the industry is still at the place where it is. I prefer to look at what we can do together as an industry, start the dialogue, and say, let's forget about finger pointing. We're not here to finger point. We're here to actually start the dialogue and see where we can go as a group and make it better for all the
That's also why it's so nice to have different women here from different companies and bringing our ideas together to push everything forward. So I'm really, really happy to have the session here and to push this topic forward.
Absolutely.
Katelyn, how has female representation changed in the industry in recent years from your point of view, from your perspective? Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. I'm thinking it's starting to improve. We're seeing a lot more diversity in the workforce, and I think the biggest signal of that is representation. And so we're starting to see more women take leadership positions at companies. We're seeing more women filling speaking roles at events like this. And when you can actually start to see more diversity in the public-facing part of the industry, that's a big signal of what's happening internally. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, a panel like this probably wouldn't have happened, or it would have been much different than it is today. And even the diversity of other panelists and other speakers may have been much different than we see today. And so I think as we start to increase that representation on the public side of the industry, we'll start to even attract more and more women to this industry and continue to grow those numbers. But we really have come a long way in these last few years.
Yeah, that's so true. And as you said, Telma, Lynk & Co. has a really good example. You recently presented the goals, what you were just saying, towards gender equality and empowerment. You're aiming to an equal of 50-50 by the company by the end of 2021, and in management positions by 2023, a split of 50-50, and other OEMs have like a split of 85% male, 15% female. So there are various benefits of having diverse teams. We can say they increase creativity, they increase innovation, but also profitability. Better problem solving can arise, and as well as decision making. So Shannon, I know from you that recently at the Amsterdam headquarters you had a Women's Day, bringing young female women together to show them the different parts of the mobility industry, of the technology part. So could you tell us a bit more how gender equality and diversity look like in your team and in general at VanMoof?
Yeah, so in my team, we actually lean more female than male. But that's not normal for VanMoof. Okay. That's not normal for the industry, certainly. So we're a part of R&D, and I think that that's pretty normal that in design you see more women than men, but then when you get to the development side of things, that switches back to traditional ways. And so, and also when you look at leadership, we have mostly men in leadership, and I'm the only woman in leadership in the R&D team. But I'm super proud because as a company, we recognize that that's something we want to work on, we want to improve, we want to have more representation. And so as we start to fill more of these leadership roles, we are looking to do that with women or other voices that are otherwise not completely represented.
What else is VanMoof doing to change it? Like, do you have some goals? Like Lynk & Co is saying at 2023, we want to have a gender split of 50-50. Did VanMoof have anything like this, like specific goals?
We haven't gotten into specific goals yet. We're beginning on our journey right now. We're beginning to really look at DEI very seriously, and we will. We're first doing some research, and then we'll make a plan, an action plan going forward. So.
Nice. And Katelyn, I'm really interested in getting to know how you ended up in the mobility industry. Like, why did you decide to work in here? Was there a special moment in your life that made you choose this industry?
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. So I'm from Detroit. I grew up in the Motor City, and so car culture is a big part of our lives here and a big part of our culture. And a lot of my family had worked in the automotive industry. It's kind of just normal where I grew up. And I always saw myself as staying in that industry and kind of carrying on the tradition of what my family has done. And then as I started going through schooling and university, and I was really attracted to the tech side of things. And so I entered into the traditional auto industry to really understand the history and the bones and how the global supply chain works, and really start to examine how things have been traditionally, and then really starting to lean into the more tech side, the new side of the industry, and how can we plug the two in together. So now I work at a PR and marketing agency. So I spend a lot of my time working with late stage startups to help them understand how they can plug into this traditional auto space, because these are their customers. This is who they're trying to target. And I spent so much time in that industry so I can really help them meet that audience.
And can you give us a little insight how gender equality, how it is at Antenna, at your latest company?
Yeah, so the company that I work at, Antenna, like I said, is a PR and marketing agency. I think by historically, PR agencies have been primarily female-based, or just at least a large portion of that workforce. But I think the interesting thing about Antenna is that we focus so much on high-tech companies, and that we've really attracted a really diverse group at our company. So whether it's gender or nationality, we have a lot of different people that work there, and to really bring our clients and our customers a diverse viewpoint from all different angles. So yes, it's an interesting agency to work at, and much different than a lot of the other agencies I've worked at in the past.
Nice insight. And Imogen, super interesting that you started your career as an aerodynamics engineer. Can you briefly tell us what excites you about the mobility industry?
Yeah, so I have to, that comes with an enormous caveat that I was actually a really terrible aerodynamics engineer. I could kind of force myself to kind of understand it, but the reason that I ended up in the automotive space is because I just love seeing how all of the different parts of the puzzle need to come together. How do you get from drawing something on a piece of paper, or even having an idea in your head, to then making that thing, and then making that thing at scale, and then allowing it to live and breathe in the world and to be something that everyone sees on a daily basis or uses on a daily basis. And I find that fascinating. And I think it's especially interesting to work in an industry that a lot of people have an opinion about. But as I've kind of gone through my career, I don't just look at, the actual physical products as I did in my sort of first early jobs, but much more about the mobility industry as a whole. And I think it's fascinating from a gender perspective that you suddenly have to realize that, these are products that are used by everyone. And so in their creation and how they're managed and how they operate, we need to ensure that all of those users are represented at every juncture in the decision-making process. Otherwise, we're going to end up with products that are just sort of simply not fit for purpose. And then when you look at the more complex aspects of mobility, such as trip chaining or ride sharing, like those things are particularly relevant to women, perhaps more so than when you look at sort of typical men's traveling habits. So I really enjoy the complexity of it and just how interwoven it is and how many people care about it.
Yeah, and you left Jaguar Land Rover, quite a luxury brand where you were settled, worked for several years, and then you went or you chose to work for a rival, like for a new startup. What did you make? Yeah, why did you choose to go this step and now work for a startup? What drove you to change, to make a change?
So that was a really terrifying move at the time. Jaguar Land Rover is one of those brands that, you know, most people who know a little bit about cars probably have heard of it. The brand partnerships are really exciting. You know, you see those vehicles in films. And to step away from that to then work on buses and vans, I was like, why am I doing this? And can I really be excited about a bus? And the short answer is I absolutely can be excited by a bus. I mean, that is, you know, enabling so many more people to access electrification and sustainable mobility than a high-end luxury vehicle. So it's been wonderful to sort of see those two ends of the spectrum and understand how vastly different people's needs are and how we can address those across the spectrum. But also, I think from an organizational perspective, going from a very established brand to one that has had to really work for that reputation and to, you know, stake its ground, stand its ground and kind of make its name known in the industry, that's been a really fascinating challenge as well.
And to speak about gender equality, diversity, inclusion at Arrival, how is it looking at Arrival? Can you tell us a bit about it?
So it's something that is very, very near and dear to the company's heart, not least because, as I mentioned, we need to have all users represented in decision-making processes such that our products are genuinely fit for purpose. But despite that, we are still, you know, we experience challenges that exist in the industry more broadly. So, for example, you know, how do we support people post-maternity leave, for example? What's the pipeline of talent look like into the industry in the first place? But we have a number of mechanisms in place that are really, really supportive. So we have the Women's Forum, which, you know, is a social network. It's a, you know, professional network. It's a place to, you know, build confidence and to talk about allyship and to actually educate some of our male colleagues around how, you know, some of the things that they might have said have been misinterpreted and how we can be better allies to each other and be better teammates. But I think we also need to balance that by working with schools, talking about our careers, showing what different types of engineer look like, and showcase those career options to really young children as well.
Perfect. Now, Telma, I would like to continue with you. I just talked briefly a bit. What are the benefits about having diverse teams? So why is it important from your point of view to have diverse teams, and what are the benefits and also chances?
I mean, except for it just being good for business, there's been, I don't know how many thousands of studies, literally, because I investigated it, thousands of studies that have been done where they have a diverse team versus only a non-diverse team. And it's really profitable. I think women bring in a different view to business, a different view to design, whichever element of the company. Yeah. And I think it's it's worth so much to have this interaction and agree to disagree and come to something new. You know, it's when you talk about change and you only have, excuse me, but like these white males sitting at a table, yes, we're going to implement change and we're going to do this and that. Well, first get the change at your desk, you know, to see and to be able to, you know, prove that your ideas and your strategy, that it works. And that's why starting the dialogue first, and this is not about now only women and, you know, we discriminate men, because I get that question a lot. Yeah, but why is it so necessary? Isn't it fine the way it is? Well, yes, if you're a man, it is. So I think it's time to not ask that question, but just acknowledge that it's an issue, it's a challenge. And if I can smile about it while talking, why should they not be able to do the same? So, but coming back to your question, I mean, you just get a better culture internally, better ideas, because you do it together, you do it mixed. So that's actually, you have a lot of points, but this is for me the most important one.
That's so true. And what I find still very, very frightening is that, for example, women often suffer more serious injuries in car accidents. And this is also one point, or one really, really important point that needs to be changed, because all the crash tests are only done with a male crash test dummy.
Yeah.
And that's also a lack of why only men so many men work in this industry. And if more women are coming up, I think this needs to be changed as soon as possible, that the tests are happening with a female crash test dummy.
And this is an example, but we're not in the 60s anymore that you think that females like the pink bunnies, We are professionals, we are here to stay, so they better make way for us.
Yes, so true. And now I would like to ask some questions in the round and to discuss it with you together. Maybe Shannon, you can start off and give us your opinion on it. Where do you see the benefits and opportunities of having more women working in the mobility industry? If you would say maybe one thing.
Just one thing.
Yeah, maybe you say 1 point. What would be the benefits?
Yeah, well, at VanMoof, we want to get 1 billion people on bikes, and that is just flat out not going to happen if we only have men in the industry. We need women. We need people who come from different mobility backgrounds, people who are skeptical of our goal, because as we meet that skepticism, we're going to be building better bikes. We're going to be building safer cities. We really need those perspectives to get out of our rut. And let's continue with you, Telma.
Yes, well, I think that if I look from a Lynk & Co perspective, we're doing so much. I'm very proud to mention one of the things that attracted me to work at Lynk & Co is that also in management, which I am part of, management team, we have a 50-50 split, and that to me was a breath of fresh air. And we have a group that comes together on a 2-weekly basis to really monitor everything within the company. Are we doing what we say we want, what we actually send the press release out for? So practice what you preach. And it's not an easy journey. I mean, while you are on that journey, you find out how rusted that industry is, and how many layers this actually has become the current status. So there's also for us, we're not perfect, we're not there yet. We start with male and female, but we have a long way to go in terms of diversity, in terms of nationalities that we want to have a reflection of society working at Lynk & Co. And that's the biggest challenge that we are taking on.
Imogen, where do you see the benefits of having more women working in the mobility industry?
Well, I think honestly, it's around creating better, more inclusive, safer products that have been backed up by very diverse and innovative decision making, because more voices are represented. And I think that's where the real benefit can come. And if we have those voices in the room, they'll be shown in the products, they'll be shown externally, and they'll be shown to sort of people coming into the industry, which is only going to be a good thing for the pipeline of talent as well.
And Katelyn, what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, so I think both yourself and Imogen really hit it well in some of your comments earlier, but it all comes down to safety and then accessibility. And so are we able to produce safe enough options? And by safe, I mean that they're tested for everyone and that they're safe. And then accessibility. And so understanding that women travel differently than their male counterparts. They're often taking multiple stops on their trips. They are ones that use public transportation more often. So how can we make sure that the systems are efficient and that they're accessible for everyone? And so by the more more diversity of thought that you have in the workplace or on your teams, the more those things will start to become more commonplace, and those conversations will be happening at the earlier stages and not at the end when you realize that you implemented a deployment that doesn't work for half of the population. And so if we build those teams early on, we can design better products and better options from the get-go.
Yeah, really, really great input from you. And maybe we can discuss, did any of you experience any disadvantage due to being a woman?
Throughout my whole career. I guess it made me fight even harder, but I hope, for the young women out there that want to have a career, I hope that won't be necessary, because you should be hardworking if you want to, have a successful career, but not be fighting for anything.
So true.
Yeah, I think I've heard it all. Like, women shouldn't do this. Women shouldn't be in tech. And I feel like every time someone breaks through, one of us breaks through, it's like, oh well, she's the exception.
Yeah.
No, we're the rule.
You're different.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
we're the rule. We're here to stay. Like, get over it.
Yeah. Get over yourself. Exactly. Yeah.
How about you, like Imogen or Katelyn?
I think I'd echo some of that sentiment. It's always, like, oh, that's unusual that you've pursued that particular career choice. And you think, why? I've got the same interests as you. Why does that have to be in any way unusual? And someone said to me this week, which I think really resonated, that, sometimes there is a skepticism with a particular opinion that you're expressing, and you have a niggling feeling that if a male maybe said the same opinion, they might not have the same degree of scrutiny. And that is frustrating, but I think it does force you to be better. And the sort of quote goes that we have to work twice as hard, but actually that's being met by a lot of people who don't make that effort. And so I think we have a tremendous opportunity to make our voices heard in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with all of that. I think, as women, and probably the 4 of us or 5 of us, it can all agree, it's all made us work harder. And I think ultimately love what we do even more, because we are so passionate, and we have to meet that skepticism with more passion, more expertise than maybe our male counterparts do.
And now, if you could change one thing to accelerate the pace for change for gender equality, what would it be?
I would like to every week be the CEO of a different OEM and make changes.
And what about you, Shannon?
Again, just one thing. Promote more women. Show that there's a path, that there's a career, that once women make it into the industry, that they understand that they have a place to stay.
And Imogen?
I agree with...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with that fully. I mean, it's all about representation. I spent a lot of time in talent attraction in my career, and going into schools, whether it's younger kids or people in university. It is so hard to get women interested in STEM in general. And so when you're talking about automotive, which has had this long stigma of being male dominated, it's really hard to get their interest there. And so if we can increase representation, show them all of the opportunities that are available to them, and that this is a long-term career that they can build a life around, and they can feel comfortable and they can feel welcomed, that's going to be the biggest part in continuing this increase of women working in the industry.
So true. And yeah, our session is nearly coming already to an end, but let's briefly talk about the future of mobility, like modes of transport become increasingly connected, shared, and autonomous. So how do you think will mobility look like in 2030, which is not very far away? What do you think, Telma?
Well, I'm hoping kind of a science fiction movie kind of setting almost. But I would definitely hope that would be safer, more easy, and hassle-free.
And what about you, Shannon?
I hope it would be less uneven. Right now, we have access to different things, that we have access to a lot of choices that not everybody has access to, and I would hope that in the future, in 2030, that everybody has access to the choice to ride a bicycle or whatever else they want to do.
And Imogen?
I think two things. Firstly, when we talk about the future of mobility, we don't just think about the vehicles, but also how we're enabling walkability and cyclability. So, availability of sidewalks, for example, something we're very used to in Europe and the UK, but less so in the US. And secondly, if there could be some amazing system that absolutely perfectly optimizes how you transport goods so that there's a perfect distribution of vans, of courier bikes, of drones, and that's really operating in a very slick, congestion-friendly way.
And Katelyn, what's your opinion? How will the future of mobility look like in 2030?
Yeah, I would like to see multimodal commutes and transportation normalized. I think other countries are better than we are in the US, and especially where I am in Detroit, it's all about owning a car and driving your car. But I would like to see multimodal become much more prevalent.
Yeah, it was super, super nice to talk to you. Unfortunately, the session is already over. I think we could talk much more about it because it's such an important topic. But it was so great to have you all here and to put a spotlight on this topic and hope we can inspire more women and also more younger women to work in this industry and to go their way and to be to do your thing. If you are interested in mobility, go your way and do it. And I'm really, really happy to have you here in Berlin, Telma and Shannon, and virtually connected Imogen and Katelyn. Thanks for taking part in my session. Elle is driving new perspective. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Britta.
Thanks.